Okay, hello. How's things? How's life? How's the universe? How has your week been? What's everybody been up to? I have been so busy, I've been overwhelmed. But then again, what's new? How's everybody doing? How's things? Hello, Ish. How you doing, man? How's things? Hello, John. How you doing, man? Yours is finally a bit better. Awesome. That's great. I'm pretty bad. Oh dear. Um, yeah, it turns out it's a busy run up to Christmas. Yeah. How's uh how's everyone doing? Hello, Jim. How you doing, man? How's things? Finally met someone just as messed up almost as myself. Congrats. Who's the lucky lady or lad? For some reason she likes me. What's wrong with her? Hey, I'm sure that it's all for the best. Life is fine for me, sorry. Hey, don't apologize for your life going alright. Like, just because mine is a train wreck. Or at least my health. No, no, my whole. Uh, but no, good, good. Hello, Wap. How you doing, man? How's things? It's been a while. How's things? And hello, Essentialist. How you doing, man? How's things? Come on, you have the fancy new drugs. I don't yet. I'm still waiting for my latent tuberculosis assessment. Or if you mean the other new drugs, I still don't have those either because, as I got confirmed to me this morning, the endocrinologist wrote a letter to my GP to tell them to prescribe me the new drugs, and yeah, he still hasn't sent it, even though he said he would send it by last Friday. It's now this Friday, and as far as I'm aware, still hasn't sent it yet. So I might not end up starting them until after Christmas. Maybe I'll get them for my birthday, the 10th of January. Um, well, maybe. Hello Simon, how you doing? How's things? Uh, I'm alive technically. Things are fine considered. Well, feel free to talk about it if you want. It's pretty clear that this is quite the open space. It's not just my misery case we talk about here. It's all of ours, you know. Uh, but yeah, either way, glad to have you. I'm glad to see you're at least technically alive. Oh dear, what we all like, eh? Uh, give us a bow. I'm sure we can sort something in the Balkans. I mean, probably not on the thingy drugs, um, the hormone drugs. Um, and hello Simon, if I didn't say that already. How you doing? How's things? um, um, uh, uh, you mean misery loves company, Andy? That's why we morbidly gather as we fall slowly apart. Well, you less slowly than the rest of us. Ain't that the truth? Oh dear. No, we're here to talk about tech. Honest. I feel like tech is a side gig to these chats. Like, even though the description is live tech chat and Q&A, PC building support, live tech support, Q&A, tech chat, we do a lot of the chat and not much of the tech. uh, Talking about tech, did you see what happened to that CEO? What, the massive golden parachute? Yeah. Was he walking away with 200 million? I think it's what was it? Intel stock price is down 41% during his tenure. Um which isn't necessarily to say that he personally did that. It was already a sinking ship when he climbed on board. Well, he was already on board, but climbed on top. But you know, not that CEO, the one that just got game ended. Right, I didn't. You're gonna have to give him some context there. Oh, the healthcare guy. He didn't have enough time to turn the Titanic. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing with like the semiconductor like industry is that it is actually a very slow moving industry. It doesn't seem it because for us we get a new set of CPUs every year, but the CPUs that we actually like, the 9800X3D, that's the most recent chip that I can think of that came out. Um and um that will have been in production in design and R&D and testing for, I think it was like, what did minimum 2 years up to 5 years, I think, depending on how what you call it, how many steps that the thing. But so the and for a whole new UART, I mean, as what I've just said, the Ryzen architecture stems back like a decade before its launch in some areas, and I think AMD are working on Zen 7 at the moment. When you're talking about a whole different architecture rather than just like individual SKUs and things, that is a longer time frame in certain areas. I mean, the Ryzen architecture dating back a decade before its launch in some areas is likely. Oh, see you, John. Um, Enjoy, have fun. Um, but I think the architecture itself. I've been actually thinking about Ryzen. It actually has basically no carryover from the FX series. Because it's a completely different even core design. Because the whole thing with the FX series was that it had 8 integer units, or 1 integer unit per core, but only one floating point unit per 2 cores, which I think landed them in some hot water with some class action lawsuits and whatnot. But anyway, point is that it's a very slow moving industry, and so Gelsinger, how long has he been CEO? It's not been that long, has it? I want to say only a handful of years. I mean, time seems to have flown by, so it might be like 5 by now, but 5 is still really only enough to do like one chip cycle, like one, hey, we need to do this differently, and then 5 years later, you might get something at the end. And also, Intel has been struggling with getting their 10 nanometer process working at all, while TSMC and Samsung bypassed them to 7, and then we're down at 4, 3, whatever now. To be clear, the nanometer is not the feature size. It's mostly just a marketing term nowadays. Back in the old days when we were talking about micrometers and early nanometers, yeah, that was likely measuring feature size. But now that I think it was like 22 nanometers that it started diverging, because Intel did the 22 nanometers to death. Oh no, it was 14 nanometers they did to death. But still, anyway. So yeah, Intel really, really, really struggled to get their 10 nanometer process to work, and yeah, I mean, I can't believe they didn't move to EUV machines until what was it, Intel 4 or was it 7? I think it was 4 actually, which is crazy. Um, yeah, Intel's not been able to recover from their fabrication issues. I think that's pretty much what's destroyed their market lead. Well, I think some of that was definitely perhaps not reading the market and not evolving with the market, because the fact that we had quad-core CPUs for over a decade from Intel, part of that might be that they thought that the market just wasn't ready for that. But yeah, the fact that they really didn't change the formula besides small incremental improvements over the years definitely didn't help them. Their fabrication issue definitely didn't help either, and I think that the most telling thing, the thing that I've talked about, especially with the Arrow Lake launch, is that besides the base tile for their Foveros packaging method, Intel isn't manufacturing any of the actual logic of the chip. It's all TSMC. Whether that's N5 for the GPU core, N3P for the compute tile, or was it N5 for the? Might be N5 or no, I think it's N6. There's 3 different process nodes, and I can't remember which one's which. But point is, Intel are using TSMC to manufacture the logic of their own chips, their own desktop chips, and I think their Lunar Lake mobile ones as well. That tells you something. Imagine being the architecture team and constantly being told that the design you're working on for the past 9 months is not going to be possible because you can't get the fab working. Must be hard. I can't imagine how much of a pain that would be. I think one of the interesting things with creativity is that creativity actually generally thrives when you have difficult conditions or restrictions. That's when you tend to get the most inventive ideas, the most like, but hold on, if we do this completely differently, but within all the parameters, we could do it this way and we get, way more performance. We get, way more performance per watt. We get way more, whatever. And so I think perhaps that might have actually become, I'm sure it was a pain in the ass at first, an interesting challenge to work out, well, okay, what can we do with this? How can we improve the chips while keeping the manufacturing process the same? I'm not saying that that's a good thing or that, they would have, that's more fulfilling than just being able to design a damn chip that they can make. But I think it would have been interesting. Yeah. I genuinely can't believe that they didn't move to EUV, because TSMC has been using extreme ultraviolet machines from ASML, which TSMC and Intel are both co-owners of the company, since N7, which was, I think, competing with, at the time, 14 nanometer, and a handful of pluses. Intel's just going to die slowly. Well, I think what they're probably going to do is what AMD did and spin out their fabs. So AMD used to manufacture or be their own fab. And then, when they got seriously out of money, they spun off their foundry business into global foundries, of which that also kind of kneecapped them a little bit, because they had an exclusive partnership or like an exclusive order quantity deal with them, to help get global foundries, like make global foundries worth something to sell it. And so they still had production quota requirements going into them making Ryzen, which is why the IO die on Ryzen was made by GlobalFoundries. Until it wasn't. Until I think it was 3rd gen, maybe. They finally were out of their quota requirements and used TSMC. Oh damn, I'm out of the loop. Forget they're using TSMC now. I know. Crazy. Lack of movement from Intel was... Yeah. I've already had 3 ad breaks so far, damn you, YouTube. It's on the most... Literally, it's called conservative. That is the ad setting that I have it on. Like, the least number of ads, the least intrusive way possible. I don't care about making money from this stream. Just want to chat with people. I always thought their TikTok plan was great, but then they couldn't align the fabs to a reasonable time frame, and they needed new products, so plus was born, and I think that killed them. It definitely didn't help. They definitely could have done more, even with those constraints. I think in particular with the adding more cores, because it wasn't until, what was it, the 8700K that they actually added 2 extra cores, and then they added 2 more, and then they added 2 more, and then they took away 2. Because I think the interesting thing is that Intel chips aren't super energy efficient. Like, they've never really been super energy efficient. It was just that at the time, you know, the FX 8150 or the 9590 when that came out was bad by comparison. Although, interestingly, by today's comparison, it's nothing. But as an example, so I'm testing an i5 4690K for a couple of different videos. And that has an 88 watt TDP for 4 cores. And 4 threads. It has no hyperthreading because Intel were super stingy about that too. It was only the i7s that got hyperthreading. So yeah, they definitely could have done more. That's for sure. Yeah, no hyperthreading. Up until, what was it? I know that the 6600K didn't have hyperthreading either. I don't think I ever tested a 7600K. Ninth gen? Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't until worryingly recently that they stopped being quite as stingy. Probably, actually, 9th gen is right around AMD being legitimately good competition, wasn't it? Because the thing with 1st gen Ryzen was it was really cool. Way better than anything AMD had done before. But it was unstable, for sure. And it wasn't a performance leader. Like, it was pretty close. But especially on the top end, Intel still had it. Well, okay, technically no, because 8 cores versus 4, not really a comparison, but yeah. I think they disable hyperthreading due to the extra power and heat it generates, like what they've done with the latest CPUs. So I've sat through a lot of Intel's briefings over the years, in fact, um, including the ones for the Golden Cove architecture, the new one. Um, and what they described in terms of the why they cut out hyperthreading was a lot to do with the die size. Now they did talk about the performance difference. There is just less performance without hyperthreading. There's obviously a bit less power usage, and they decided that that power usage difference, especially for the mobile parts, was worth the performance hit. And but in the grand scheme of things, not having hyperthreading does save a little bit of power, but the thing about hyperthreading is that it's not super well utilized, because the whole point of a CPU core or core design is to do your best to limit the amount of time that the core spends idle, specifically waiting for a cache hit or waiting for what you call it, load from memory, waiting for an instruction. Like, being just idle because it doesn't need to do anything, that's fine. But being under full load but having to be idle because you're waiting for a cache hit or something further, that's where, I mean, that's why we have branch prediction, which is also why we get melter and melter and spec then. But so the thing about I have ADHD. Can you tell? The thing about hyperthreading is that it basically gives you two instruction queues, so that when you have what you call it, an idle time, the second queue can pop in and execute an instruction to get something else going while the other queue is waiting. But the problem with that is that the whole point of CPU design is to minimize that idle time under load. And so it tends to be a lot less utilized than you might think. It's not a 2x performance improvement. Depending on the task, depending on the CPU design on things, it can be like 1.5x, which is amazing, but it can also be sometimes even slightly slower because of the whole swapping queues, and if the scheduler isn't handling it well, that can be a problem. So yeah, it does end up being, according to Intel anyway, a bit of a wash depending on which way you want to go. So yeah. I think it's worth about 30% on my 5950X. That sounds about right. It does depend on the workload. Obviously, all core workloads, but even all core workloads differ quite a bit depending on what sort of workload it is, in essence. Is it very cache heavy? Is it very RAM heavy? Or is it all just compute power? Do you think disabling hyperthreading on new CPUs is why its performance doesn't meet even Intel's expectations? Like, they were forced to disable it because they'd lose the efficiency gains. So I think the majority of it, something has just clicked in my mind, and it's um, I don't know if you call it a conspiracy theory, but it's a it's definitely a fan theory. So pinch of salt. But I wonder because honestly, having listened to Intel's presentations and having read through the slide deck several times to write several different videos about that microarchitecture and about those chips and whatnot, they really, really, really emphasized that the benefit to removing hyperthreading is a shrink in the die size. Intel is now no longer manufacturing their own dies, which means they need to buy die space, or wafers, from TSMC, and they will have a limited quantity that they can buy. And by decreasing the die size, they can increase the potential yield, and therefore save money. Huh. Now that's just a theory. A tech theory. But to answer your actual question about whether I think hyperthreading is a reason why the Intel chips, let's face it, kind of suck this generation. I'd be surprised if that was the majority of it. I think that the hybrid architecture is a great design for mobile chips and laptops and things, but terrible design for desktop. Yes, they were / are in Arizona. And they did get quite a bit of money from the Fish and Chips Act, yes. It wasn't even just tax discounts, it was like straight money. Straight bank. Intel was the more stable processors until 12th gen. Now AMD is more stable. I agree. I mean, there's a reason why I'm running an 11900K is my CPU. Yeah. Hybrid is awful mostly because Windows and most software isn't made to work with it. Well, that's the thing. As much as I despise Apple for their horrible anti-consumer practices, you gotta give it to them that their closed door, lockdown, you'll have what I give you and you'll goddamn like it ecosystem has meant that they just rewrote their own operating system to suit their new CPUs. And then they forced all of their developers to rewrite their own stuff. Technically, they also made... Is it Rosetta? Because it's the whole translation there. But that definitely helped. But let's face it, there was a very strong pull for developers to rewrite their software for the new hardware. Whereas Windows or Microsoft will not rewrite Windows ever. Look at them. If they had the chance to, they would have done it already. Or if they were going to do it, they would have done it already. And they certainly don't have the pull to rewrite all the software for Windows. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. For systems that are designed for it, I mean, actually, as Ish says, your phone is a hybrid chip, and it has been for what, well over a decade, um, if not two. Because ARM has been hybrid for a very long time, with their big little core design. Um, and again, for an integrated for a system that is designed for it, so Android and iOS, those handle that core um, disparity really well. You never notice. But for Microsoft, that cares an awful lot about legacy, and because only one of the two chip manufacturers are actually making them, and it's only, a few percentage of the market, because let's face it, there are still a lot of 6th, 7th, 8th, ninth, 10th, and 11th generation CPUs that are very much in operation and will not need to be upgraded for a while. Because, for us gamers, yeah, you're more inclined to buy a newer thing, a faster thing, and upgrade more regularly. But for your average office, which is where the majority of PCs are used, they don't upgrade. Not nearly as much as, we do. Um, the server market is even worse. So, yeah. Um, it just works, but I wonder if Intel thought their best buddies at Microsoft would be able to handle it and quickly realize that Microsoft simply does not have the talent to rewrite code like that. Um, Microsoft fired other QA developers like a decade ago. Or the quality assurance engineers. They're testers. And then they made people who, for the most part, still have to pay for the damn software be their beta testers. What does that tell you about Microsoft? So yeah, oh god, I haven't heard that name in a while. So, what happened to him? Is he still making videos? Uh, 3 to 4 years for most companies these days, and occasional videos. Uh, Fair enough. Nice. What was I saying? Have I said that I have ADHD yet? It makes you forgetful. Oh yeah, Windows 11 only exists because Intel asked Microsoft to make a new version of Windows so that they could market that you need to use the new version of Windows with the 12th generation Alder Lake hybrid chips. And then, of course, Microsoft took that as an opportunity to be the greedy that they are, and made the experience worse for everyone. As I said in my video recently, well, actually, it's probably not that recently, but the video about why Windows 11 sucks. Which isn't the first time that I've made a video saying that one of Microsoft's operating systems sucks. Although this one is a bit more polished than the last one. Yeah, they said that 10 was going to be the last one. Yeah. Um, my son's finish. My son finishes this month, so one of the last software developers that could rewrite Windows from the ground up. Damn. I mean, that's amazing. And a shame for Microsoft. You're completely right-ish, and I'm really not looking forward to it. Does anyone realize that Microsoft's last complete ground-up OS was Vista? It's crazy when you think about it. Yeah, technically. I mean, certainly the ground-up nature. As soon as we moved to 32 and 64-bit, that's pretty much it. Yeah, still the NT4 kernel. Windows Aero was launched in Vista. I think features like Snap were still there as well. What's kind of funny is that there's still lots of like genuinely legacy shit that's still there. Um, but you know, stuff might have had a reskin. Although, what was it? The if you go to format an SD card, like quick format an SD card, uh, that format window is the exact same format window, just with a new like Aero UI window frame that they've had since 95. Yeah, I think, which is hilarious. Hello, tiny name that I can't read. Raga? Hello. How you doing? How's things? Uh, Best Windows shortcut: Control Shift Alt Win L. Oh, that opens LinkedIn, doesn't it? uh, uh, it's disadvantaged the state of Microsoft today. Yeah, Microsoft is in money mode. Um, Nice to meet you too. We talk about all things tech here, and my failing health. I heard about that, and the FAT32 size limit was just a random number the developer applied, thinking it would last forever. Yeah, that too. Um, hasn't that been updated in, I guess, Windows 11 now? I think. What's the topic here? Well, currently, it changes quite quickly, but currently Windows being terrible, Intel losing uh, their footing in the market, and uh, aging software, mostly Windows. Yeah, years ago in 8.1, I think. I thought it was more recent than that. I thought that the FAT32 file size limit was change was more recent. Well, there you go. Right, I see. Expat instead. Um, One of the things that I've been working on this week that has been driving me insane, or helping to drive me insane, is the expert response time tool, which, as you can see, was expertly cut open. um, as you can tell, this is a development board. I have been making so many fucking changes to this and testing and retesting. And yeah, I think I'm about ready to get another revision of the board. Well, okay. So the reason why there's a big hole in the bottom is because I designed the hole to fit this photodiode. As you can see, this photodiode that I'm actually going to use is much bigger than this hole, than this little can, so I needed some more space. I technically could have 3D printed a new case, but I only just finished designing the new case, and I just wanted some quick test results. So, what are you changing? Quite a lot and not a lot. So things like the microcontroller are staying as they are. The general plan for the for things like the custom digital potentiometer setup, that's staying the same. The transimpedance amplifier is changing quite a lot. So I'm using a negative voltage generator for the negative rail of the op amp. It generates a minus 0.23 volt output. So instead of hooking the ground pin of the op amp to ground, you hook it up to minus 0.023 volts so that the op amp can actually swing. Even though it's a rail-to-rail op amp, it can't actually get all the way to 0 or all the way to your supply voltage. So if you give it 0.23 volts, or minus 0.23 volts, the output can swing to fully 0, but generally not below it. Not that that really matters. And that's the reason that I use 3.6 volts as the supply voltage, even though, at least on the standard OSRTT Pro CS boards, the ADC, which is just built into the microcontroller, is a 3.3 volt supply. So having 3.6 volts means that it clips slightly, which makes it much easier to calibrate it properly, because if it's clipping, it's just a straight line at 65,520. Which is just shy of 65,536, which is 2 to the power of 16. So yeah, that one. I've changed the low pass filter to the cutoff being 659 kilohertz instead of about a megahertz, 1 megahertz. What else has changed? I swapped back photodiode. I swapped to this new, much larger photodiode. It's still from Thor Labs. It's an FDS 1010 instead of an FDS 100. You can still get them calibrated, like NIST certified and traceably calibrated, which is real nice. Although this is just the standard one. But yeah, that's what I'm going to use instead of the canned ones. Which also drops the Z height quite a lot, because I don't have to have the socket and then the photodiode. Yeah. Like overdrive mode for more accuracy. Kind of, yeah. It should mean that the external analog to digital converter that I'm using can actually snap from true 0 to true 65,500 something. 500 and something. Yeah, that. I've actually removed the flash chip that's on board, because the one that's just at my fingertip there, it's a 128 megabit, so 16 megabytes, or 8 megabyte, 16 megabyte. I can't do maths in my head. Chip, but it's I just could not get it to work, and I decided that I'm not going to use it anyway. So got you like full dynamic range mode. Yeah, that's probably a better way to describe it. The whole point of the where is it? These two chips and these resistors, my sort of custom digital potentiometer setup, is that these essentially give it a much higher like contrast ratio, if you like. So I mean, not this one, the other one, but when you strap this to a display, the photodiode has an amplifier here. That's that chip there. That's an op amp anyway, and then all the circuitry around it is the rest of the amplifier circuits. And that is what amplifies the current from the photodiode. And these resistors are what control the gain of the amplifier here, and basically that At a fixed gain amount, you can only get so much light coverage and so much granularity in the light coverage as well. Because if you're testing a really dark display, like a really, 80 nits, which is actually technically like SDR standard, but whatever. Let's say you're testing at 80 nits, which is really pretty dim. You still want it to be able to scan like your results to take up as much of the range as possible, especially on the darker measurements. You want that to be sort of separated as much as possible for the best data quality. But you still want to be able to test higher brightness displays, which is where having a sort of a programmable resistor and therefore a programmable gain comes in. But yeah, that is the expert response center. PCB in it. Yeah. So how do you cope with testing a monitor that goes crazy bright, like 1,000 nits? You basically the way that my custom digital potentiometer works is that it essentially just bypasses any one of those resistors in any one of 256 possible combinations, because there's 8 total switches, 8 total resistors, and so you can basically bypass them to get the lowest possible resistance. The lower the resistance, the lower the gain. And so yeah, for something like 1,000 nits, I'm pretty sure that OSRTT Pro CS should, don't quote me on this, I haven't tested it yet, do 1,000 nit displays reasonably well, especially because if it's doing 1,000 nits at full screen, like full screen white brightness, RGB 51, for example, at 1,000 nits when it's at 255 is still going to be damn bright. I would suspect more than 80 nits, by a decent margin, I'd imagine. And so yeah, that makes it better. Essentialist, what I want to do is I've actually bought just a pure white LED, and the next version of the board will have a test header on it that will let me control the brightness of the LED. And basically the LED will just be mounted under the case. So instead of using a monitor, which is semi-complicated in terms of what you call it, its function. There's a lot of intricacy to it when I just want to be able to test my like photodiode and amplifier circuit sort of isolated as much as possible to do development on that. So in theory, I'll be able to do that. I'll calibrate the brightness of the LED at various points with one of my other tools, like the Spider X or X2, or even the Spider 5 that's up there. I've got a few of them. But yeah. Just had a thought. We all know when you put a bright object on an OLED screen, the rest of it dims. If you use 2 of your tools, could you measure how much of it dims? So you wouldn't need 2 of them. You only need 1. To be clear, it's basically only WOLED panels that have what's called an adaptive brightness limiter, an ABL, that does that dimming. I have a QD OLED, and it does not have an adaptive brightness limiter. It stays at the same brightness pretty much no matter what you do with it, which is amazing. But in my reviews, I have shown how much adaptive brightness limiters can cut back, and their profile, like how quickly they do it as well. that's something that the response time tool captures anyway. Now it's not calibrated to actual like nits, for example. It's not a sort of usable number in the sense that you can look at it and go, ah yes, it peaks at 600 but it drops down to 200 or whatever. Like it's not calibrated to the number of nits, but it is still a useful measurement and still interesting to look at the graph and go, look, it goes way up, and then one frame later goes way down and down again, and down again, and down again until it's basically black. So yeah, I hate it too. It's why I really don't like WOLEDs. But QD-OLED, quantum dot, no problems. Also much better for burn-in my experience. I've been using this QD-OLED for I think over a year now. And there is still no burn-in at all. Right. It's never done a full refresh either. I don't want to press any buttons on it to find out how many hours it's been running, but yeah. I disabled that on my living room TV. Best thing I ever did. Couldn't take the constant dimming. I understand that, yeah. 20 euros. Can you make me a QD OLED? I can make you a picture of one. For 20 euros, I'll even do it by hand. Wife's got some watercolor. She was, doing Christmas card making earlier with some friends. I could watercolor you an utterly terrible picture of an OLED. Better late than never. Going to Donington Park on Saturday again. Wish me luck in this weather. I'm pretty sure the weather's going to be chucking it down because I picked up some scaffolding, a scaffolding tower for my structural engineer, and structural work, sorry, and yeah, it's gonna be pissing it down on Saturday, which is when I need to do it. Luckily, it is only drilling 6 to 10 holes in my wall, and then putting some resin in the holes, ramming some rods through the holes, and yeah, seeing how that goes. Always the way, so's law, mate. I know. Well, hold on. Let me see if it's changed. How'd you pick up the scaffolding tower, trailer, van? Van. It's a collapsible, or it's like a big bit of Meccano or Lego. It is pretty cool. It's called an MI tower, as in Mike India Space Tower. You want to look it up? I got the 2-man one. Let me check what that comes up. Yeah, it's still going to be raining a lot on Saturday. Okay, yeah, well, I'll just bring a brolly. Me tower. It's going to be bad on Sunday as well. Less bad on Sunday, but I'm just going to get... what's your day job, mate? If you can believe it, this! I know! I've been doing YouTube full time for 8 or 9 years. Yeah. Lucky booked a garage now. Good plan. And I already have the scaffolding tower. It's dismantled in the garden. And I use my system mostly for video encoding. I was thinking of upgrading from 3700X to 5900X, wondering if that was dead money or should I go AM5. Well, considering AMD is still releasing new CPUs for AM4, it's clearly not actually dead money. But yeah, the personally, I would say just upgrade the CPU. Don't bother with motherboard and whatnot. It's going to be a perfectly decent chip for you. You actually technically still have a further upgrade path to the 5950X if you wanted. And yeah, it's going to keep working fine. And as you say, it's mostly for video encoding, so like, who cares that much? It's probably not going to have an amazing amount of resale value, especially the longer you wait. That's just with all tech. But yeah, I don't think that buying a new motherboard, new RAM, and a new CPU will be a significant like, it will be a decent amount more performance for sure. But if you wanted more performance, just get the 5950X instead, right? Yeah. TechteamGB has property in several countries. That's how the company makes money. Do you mean all the free stuff that I sent you? I'm kidding. It's a scaffolding tower rather than actual scaffolding. Actual scaffolding was going to be 400 to 500 quid. This is 120 for a full week. And so yeah. I've been a subscriber for a long time. Heard about some of your health issues. Hope you're doing okay. Thank you for your concern. No, I'm not. Currently the ulcerative colitis is kicking my ass. I need. I'm going to be starting on infusions of what I like to joke are bioweapons. They're actually called biologics, and they're just as bad as bioweapons. But yeah, I need to have a blood test first, and that hasn't even been booked yet, let alone been done. So, yeah. And then the injections, so I have to do infusions first, which is where I sit in the hospital for 2 hours hooked up to a drip, and then another 2 hours sitting in the hospital to make sure that I don't keel over and die. And I need to do that 3 times before they then let me stab myself at home. Worried about the Asus board B450M Prime might not be up for the job for a 5950X. The 5950X and the 5900X both draw the same amount of power. They both have the same 142 watt maximum power draw. So it really doesn't matter. So does the 5700X. And I think the 5600X. Sorry, 57 and 5800X both have the same power draw as well, I think. Thanks. And see you, Simon. Best of luck. Yeah. I have a lot wrong with me. My eyes are falling apart. My lungs don't work. I have 3 different mental health diagnoses. Well, maybe 5, depending on who you ask. My joints are in pain all the time. My lower back is permanently crooked. It's called lumbar lordosis. I have ulcerative colitis. What else? Is that it? No, that can't be it. Yeah, palindrome rheumatism, lumbar lordosis, mapped out dystrophy, asthma, ulcerative colitis. Yeah. Do you get the funny opioids at least? I used to actually for the joint pain, but not anymore. If viewers fail to click the like button, your ailments keep growing. Honestly, mate, if people not clicking the like button was the thing that was making my ailments growing, I'd be in the ground by now. But hey, at least I'm chipper about it. Yeah. Anyway. Nice. I had cocodamol for my stomach ulcers when I was 17, and then tramadol. What? I'm too busy making shit and doing shit to not be. So um uh, don't really have a choice. You can be miserable or you can get on with it. Easier said than done though. I'm trying. Oh dear. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it there. That's our usual hour anyway. So, if you want to pop back next week, feel free. These are every Thursday night at 8 p.m. UK time. Also, just to clarify, there won't be one on Boxing Day. I'll probably be traveling, so I won't be available stream. But otherwise, hi. CRISPR isn't a drug, it is a DNA manipulation tool. It's really fucking cool, but it's also kind of dangerous because you can modify DNA very well. Anyway, topic for another day. Catch you guys next week.